Okay,
Got it.
great.
Yeah.
So,
So when it comes to collection development, I'm probably not the best person. I'll freely admit, you know, we're in the library systems here at the
mhm,
Ruther Library, which is where I've worked for 15 years. But we don't have a collection that we lend out to folks.
mhm,
So we have a reading room, and as I mentioned earlier, that's something that all of us have a responsibility um, to handle. But when it comes to collection development, we do things a little bit differently, and it has a little bit of a different meaning here. So, and at its core, we're essentially like three archives,
okay.
um, and we have archivists that are attached to specific collections as well. Um, so I just wanted to start out by saying that collection development in archives is completely different than collection development in a traditional public library or even an academic library.
Well, I mean, that's great to know because we have a strong archives concentration. So some of our students watching this may be interested in
Hmm.
archives instead of public libraries or academic libraries. So it's good they get to know.
So have you spoken with a lot of librarians on in the more traditional sense of collection development?
I have. I think this is my fourth interview. I've spoken with a school librarian, um, a librarian who kind of dabbled in lots of different areas from children to Spanish ESL kind of collection development, and an academic librarian at Harvard,
Mm,
or a law librarian at Harvard.
right. Wow,
So
that's pretty fantastic.
run the gamut.
Yeah, it's nice to get different
It
perspectives.
really is.
I would imagine that um, the academic librarian and the public librarian probably would have started out by talking something about vendors and budgets.
Mhm. Yeah.
We don't have any of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when it comes to collecting in archives, there's a whole lot of ethics that go into it.
Hmm.
For example, I was just talking to you about the University of Michigan, and they have a historical library called the Bentley, and we have some overlap in our mission in terms of what we collect.
Hmm.
So when we talk about collection development, I would be remiss to not talk about how we do not compete with each other, or at least we try to. So there needs to be some sort of agreement there, because Ann Arbor is only about 30 minutes down the road from here,
Hmm.
and in southeastern Michigan. And Wayne State, where I am here at the Ruther Library, is right in the heart of Detroit. So we basically have three aspects to our archive, and that is, one is the university archives. So we keep the archives for the university. And then two, we have the urban affairs aspect of what we do,
Hmm.
and that is collecting the grassroots efforts that are around this area. Um, social justice movements, things of that nature. Excuse me. And then we have our labor archives. So we're the largest labor archives in America, or at least
Oh,
that's
wow.
such. So we have collections from the United Automobile Workers, SEIU,
Hmm.
AFSCME, the bigger union names. A lot of people are shocked to find out that Cesar Chavez's records here are in Detroit,
Oh, I did not know that.
as a part of the United Farm Workers Union, the UAW, and Walter Reuther, who essentially, the name of the library is the Walter Reuther Library, so I'm basically built at UAW. They had a very strong connection, as did the first director of this library with the UFW and Cesar Chavez. So yeah, they're here. So we get people coming in from all over the world to look at that collection and many of our other collections. Um, so we really have like an international clientele. And so when we talk about collecting, um, you know, I mentioned ethics, so we try not to compete with the other archives around here. Another one would be the Burton Historical Collection, which is literally right across the street from where I'm sitting. Um, and they're really charged with collecting things from the city of Detroit,
Mhm.
such as the Detroit public school systems, etc. Um, so um, there's a pretty big area where we can collect, but we don't give anybody any money for it, or at least in practice, that's kind of how things work out. Um, there have been some instances where we've seen things like pop up on eBay.
Mhm.
Somebody maybe stole something from somebody,
Oh,
was trying to sell it, and then we've somehow come up with some money to make those purchases. Very rare, almost never happens. So what we try to do is um, strike an agreement with a donor that will take care of the collections forever, and then maybe hopefully get some money from them to help that out. Um, budgets are small and increasingly getting smaller. So we try to get some sort of attachment when we get a collection coming in. But all that is largely due to our efforts through community outreach and donor
mhm.
relations. So our collection development really starts with our relationships with people, and the the sort of like vendor, like I'm going to give you $10,000 a year so we can access these ebooks, doesn't really happen in
Mhm.
archives. That's not the model that we work under at all. We do have some vendors that we give money to, but it's largely for like server storage and things of that
Mhm.
nature. So my job as the digital resources specialist is largely to be in charge of our digital resources. So I help out with digitization, transferring of materials from our donors, getting into some end systems, things of that nature. So we all play a pretty important role. So the processing archivists that we have on staff, the collection archivists we refer to them to, they're the ones that are really doing the donor relations, making
Mhm.
those connections, getting everything prepared to come into the archives, and then describing and arranging it. Um, that's kind of that's their wheelhouse, so to speak. Um, and I guess yeah, I really can't make too many connections between what a library does for collection development and what an archive does, but
Mhm.
um, I've touched on a couple points, so I should probably shut up for a minute. I have a tendency to
No,
ramble.
no, this is great. This is very unique from what I've already talked to other librarians about. So how or where did you learn your collection development skills?
Well, I mean, I don't do a whole lot of collection development, but
Yeah.
if I were to boil down what collection development is in its essence, um, I would say that for the most part, it's just kind of some these skills that I acquired along the way.
Mhm.
For example, I was talking to you about that digitization technician job that just popped up at the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Um, that's being able to take a collection in its physical form, scan it, turn it into something digital, and then get it out there for researchers to access. I think that's a form of collection development. And these are skills that I started acquiring in the 90s,
Mhm.
when we finally started getting scanners, and um, when the internet was coming up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been developing these rudimentary fundamental skills for 20, 25, good Lord, almost 30 years. Ugh. Anyway, and then I do have the formal master's degree in
Yeah.
library information science as well. Didn't learn a lot in library school, but it was nice to be able to put some of my thoughts in order and all that stuff. So um, yeah, I'm definitely an advocate for education, but I'm also an advocate for sort of do-it-yourself sort
Yeah.
of attitude. And then the undergraduate degree was in history, so I've always had an interest in preserving these records. So so other people can, you know, make their own opinions on matters.
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot of people comment, that they learned mainly on the job. They're anything to do with collection development or collection management, or a lot of things in LAS you didn't really learn in school.
I think a lot of people, I really shouldn't talk like that. Who knows what a lot of people think, but it's when it comes to collection development, my money would be that the bigger aspect for a person learning something on the job would simply be how to interact with a vendor.
Mhm.
You know, from what I understand, like with shrinking budgets and all that, the vendors are really putting the thumb screws on libraries, and that
Mhm.
means on specific librarians that are responsible for a certain section of what we refer to as a library. You know, and you being able to still get everything you need without getting a bunch of extraneous material that's bundled in for some reason. It seems to be a real chore. So um, I think collection development has a lot to do with just being able to interact with a vendor in a very business like sense. So
Mhm.
you know, alas, the libraries aren't just you know, picking up you know, a few hundred books, you know, every couple months. You know, it's like now it's like databases and journals,
Mhm.
and these things get very expensive, and the budget is just like poof, gone almost immediately. So and maybe that's not the case everywhere, but it certainly is here in Michigan. You know, I think collection development has been um, shifting towards the digital realm for decades now, and I don't see any change there. So I think thoughts of this romantic notion of going back to these book museums or whatever is like
Mhm.
it just it I don't see it happening. Yeah, access is a huge issue these days.
It is. It certainly is. What advice would you give to someone who's just beginning either in collection development or librarianship in general?
I mean, you know, besides the aspect we talk about with just like the interpersonal, you know, ability to work with somebody in a business sort of sense, um, I would say, you know, like a person should be able to understand a budget, you
Mhm.
know, and be able to really to understand the mechanics of you know, how far can you push a dollar. Um, you know, it drives me crazy when I see people be just like, oh, we'll just hire that out, or just you know, we'll give them what they want. You know, there's a sort of negotiation that can happen, and um, if it's not being done, then um, these 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 prices are just going to continue to increase. Sad to say.
Phew. Sorry.
God bless you.
Thank you.
So I mean, I think that's a pretty good start for somebody.
Mhm.
You know, definitely focus in on the budget. Definitely focus in on relationships. Um, I mean, obviously, um, people are going to be able to kind of specialize or become experts in a particular area.
Yeah.
So understanding the material is a really strong position to make a solid argument. And so, you know, maybe focus in a little bit on specializing in an area. You know, maybe you're the liaison to the engineering department or something. So
Mhm.
better brush up on some engineering. You know, you should
Yeah.
be able to do some, you know, some basic engineering principles, things of that nature. Um, yeah, I think being a solo librarian, certainly that kind of checks that statement a little bit. You know, you have to be kind of a generalist, but for the most part, you usually have some coworkers that can really focus in on specific areas. So being able to rely on a team is an important aspect too.
Oh, certainly. Is there anything I didn't ask or that you would like to contribute? Is there anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this profession for a couple decades, you know.
Mhm.
There's always going to be questions that come
Mhm.
up because the profession is changing, you know, will continue to change, and probably rapidly, probably more rapidly than we can keep up with as people.
I think so.
And you know, just get involved with professional associations. You know, definitely try to create a network of people where you can ask questions and get some answers. I try to be one of those people. So I try to be out there professionally, as online and as accessible as possible. So, you know, look me up if there are questions that come up. You know, maybe we can work through them together. I can't anticipate all the questions, but I try to come up with some good answers. Um, I do have some experience drawing, so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So it's okay if the students reach out to you?
Of course, yeah,
Okay. Because I'm sure they
absolutely.
will have questions. They
Yeah,
always do,
the
in a good
students
way.
should come, the students should come to Detroit and research in this archive.
They
That's,
should.
they should.
I should
Absolutely.
visit. It's not, again, it's not too far away from me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take a boat, take a plane. You can drive in like, I don't know, 6 hours or so.
Yeah, it's not too far.
Not bad.
Stop recording now.